Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Alchemist and the Oracle, a space where we engage in spiritualized conversations that deepen understanding, inspire transformation, and spark meaningful dialogue about life's most profound truths. I am Nicole Love, the Oracle, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Warrioress Ardeshir A'ren, also known as the Alchemist. And today we're getting into conversation.
Howdy, everyone.
Today we're getting in conversation. We're picking up on the previous episode about spiritual amnesia, and we are going to be talking about how do we find our way now that we remember, now that we recognize the amnesiatic states. How do we shift it? So with that, I'm going to let the Alchemist chime in here and share her take.
Hello, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Much love and peace always. It's about how do we begin remembering who we are. Piggybacking, again, as my co-host said, off of the spiritual amnesia conversation. And so in the last conversation, for example, is how do we forget who we are? And it's been through conditioning, the pain, the survivor roles, and the ego structures that we've dealt with. But, I say awareness key, but awareness alone isn't enough. And I get to kind of how that is. So what the real question becomes is like, if we've forgotten who we are, how do we begin remembering, right? So remembering isn't about becoming someone, because when I was looking at the transformation, stepping across the line, doing this becoming, is that I would be losing a part of myself, which is not true. I mean, I'll shift, but for me, in my example, it's not about becoming somebody new. It's more about removing the layers covered that we covered over our essence, the layering, that we did over our essence, and reconnecting. So the first shift is not that awareness is not enough, is that it begins, it's the key to begin with. Remembering is where we begin with awareness, is recognizing the roles we've been living, inside. Okay. So most people think that remembering themselves will feel really dramatic. And that's not necessarily the case. It's more about quietly noticing, So it's like where you're acting out of fear, where you're acting out of performing, where you're acting out of over-explaining yourself. Cha-ching. A little bit about that. Where you're shrinking to keep peace, for example. That's another one. And where you have been trying to prove your worth. So, and a lot of us done that comes up with the beliefs that we are something other than what we are. So I want to give you an example, for that, is that there was a point in time where I realized that I was functioning, and even through the traumas, I was functioning well because I had to do what I needed to do because of the capacity in which I was serving, but really wasn't actually connected to myself, which, for most things, the ego will say, the ego will want to get in the way and say something other than that. But I was operating out of habit and survival mode. So for an example, most of that comes from trauma or unacknowledging the trauma you've been through, pressing forward, not allowing yourself to feel, to cry, for example. Okay? So, so now secondly, we look at creating a space to allow ourselves to hear ourselves, which we talk about the intuition, talk about that in different rooms. Driving is one of mine, but this is a little bit deeper to get it, and it's just an inkling of this different saying. So reclaiming ourselves again, and reclaiming the disowned parts. and we structure. So there's a lot of reasons that we, forget ourselves because of the constant noise in the world. Social media, expectations. And why I said when you're expecting something, you can get truly disappointed expecting something and bring it all personal and things of this nature. So expectations, so is that we are in the world and versus coming within and connecting outside the world. And sometimes we need those moments. We put ourselves in it, and it's come up on several different cases just to say it differently. I don't say it differently. Other people's opinions. Predictive productivity culture. And I think I mentioned this in like when you go to Instagram page about the perfectionism, and one of the things is over, having to do all these things, overproducing what you produce or not produce that you define yourself by, for example, or emotional survival, for instance. So we forget ourselves because we rarely sit with ourselves. I know that's been a challenging thing for me, even for who I am and how I've transferred to be, and who I am here sitting in front of you. So, and I always talked about slowing down. So it's about remembering begins with slowing down enough to allow us to hear our inner voices again. Some of the practice have been mentioned and some stuff. So some stuff just seems to come back around and around. Journaling, sitting in silence. And yes, the brain will come back. And there's one thing that I'm interested is to concentrate on your nose kind of brings you back. So you close your eyes and you center here on your nose. And I do it a lot because the mind is an ongoing thing here. Nature walks. I mean, going and seeing and running into or seeing animals like woodpeckers and things, and seeing that and connecting outside yourself is really cool. And then sitting without the stimulation, without the phones, without all this other stuff. And sometimes you need to shut your freaking phone off, or you need to be away from it. But shutting it off is the best thing you can do. Just like they say, sleeping. I'm gonna have to practice again. Is putting your phone on the other side of the room, especially when you sleep, so it's not the first thing you grab in the morning. Or to similar things like that, or at night when you want to, settle your brain down, look over, and even during the night, what happened or anything that you want to do, and get in a plan or something like that, so your mind is not going all the time when you're in bed. And it's still a continued practice that I'm focused on doing. So in that, you might want to say something, like, or you might want to think about this, because sometimes when we sit in silence, it's not that we meet it. So we want to meet, kind of with our coping mechanisms and kind of identify what those mechanisms have been that no longer serve us going forward. So you don't meet your soul when you're sitting aside, you meet your coping mechanisms. And then eventually our voices return, slowly but surely. But it doesn't happen like in one day, I'm telling you. I know how the ego works and how it's protected us through the things that we've known, and accepting certain things and that nature. So that's where the remembering begins in that thing. And man, it feels so good to do it. However you do it. Not everybody does it the same way. Not everybody. I can walk and meditate. That's why I know going and taking and getting away from that. I don't take my phone on my nature walk. I don't do it. Now, sometimes we're listening to music, but we have to be very focused and conscious on getting disciplined enough not to go to that social media, not to go that, and be focused in the music while you're visualizing the area or surroundings around you to calm you and to take you away from the noise in the world. So thirdly, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we abandoned. So again, get to remembering the lost parts of self that we let go of. It's been very challenging, and I like to bring in the men because you have a sensitivity, you have things. Like I said, you may not be able to cry in front of the world, but you need to do it. And you don't nobody have to know when you're doing it. Don't nobody need to know that you're doing it. You do it for your own self, your own release, so you walk in because of what you carry in the world and what you mean in the world, my men. So you get to look at the abandoned pieces of ourselves, that the sensitivity, the creativity, the voice. How about the voice? The voice, huge circle voice. Curiosity and trust. Trust is another one. So sometimes we abandon them because they weren't welcome. Oh my God, to speak your truth. Um, I mean, I have to give an example of an experience now. You know, some people might have it, and I know a girl who wants to play flag football. I play tackle football, no gear. I think gear would have interfered with my skill set. And I mentioned this in area guard mark with the job that I was doing. And I'm like, what was really is the funniness is because it wasn't welcome. And they laughed at it and made a really lewd comment. And I'm like, how you gonna make a stupid comment about me being a tight end when y'all play tight end? It was kind of stupid to me. So unwelcomed. Okay. And that's one that came up for me. So I wrote it down. Okay. So many of us don't lose ourselves. We replace our, parts of ourselves in a storage or a container to survive. Okay. So the word becomes to retrieval. I like restoration in the return to self. So we have to ask ourselves these questions like, what part of me did I silence to belong? That's a deep one. What part of me did I hide because it was misunderstood? Had that conversation. I know that someone knows that. Because of being misunderstood. I hide that part. And what part of me still wants expression or to express self? So you have to return. We talked about, shadow, darkness, not to stay there, but to recover what was left behind. So I know I had a couple things I wanted to throw in here for you. And I probably just throw in one for my co-host as she goes forth next in her connection of sharing the body part, because actually the body responds so to this. So fourthly, it's about choosing ourselves again. It's about remembering it's not only a reflection, it's requiring new choices. To choose to roll in something that honors us in the moments right now. When you begin to remember who you are, your life begins to ask you certain things about speaking differently, setting boundaries, and releasing old roles. That's all those old roles and the limited belief roles that we've walked in, the perfectionism roles, and the roles of disappointing people who benefited from the old version of you. Ooh wee! I wrote in my notes. This is an uncomfortable stage. I smile because sometimes you have to smile through stuff. I think you need to feel it, because you speak about you need to feel it, but sometimes you just gotta laugh. Just got to. Remember yourself can feel that discomfort because the world got so used to the version of you that you forgot, or that we've forgotten. But this is where you get to re-embody. Or embody, I said re-embody ourselves. to remembering that becomes living differently, not just understanding, walking that, living that here. And so I'm coming to the end here where it's a conscious practice. Remembering is a conscious practice. It's just not something did here for a month. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing that you do for life. Remembering is not about a one-time awakening. I still like our song, Wake Up Everybody. It's a life, it's an ongoing for life journey. Because I'll tell you, the ego, everything will invite you back. You have to continue this ongoing. It will invite you back to performing the way old roles, fear, and external validation. That's also external validation of our perfection. It was a limiting belief, looking for validation. And the work is just about simply returning to ourselves again and again and again and again and again, over and over and over and over and over and over. It's by remembering to be in relationship with your own essence. You know, I use the word essence all the time. So I'll close with this. Many of us are searching for a purpose. I was searching for a purpose after my mama died. After the next friend that was like a mod to me that I got really, really close. I used to do my hair back in the day. Friends that I didn't get to reconnect with when I came back. And this is personal here. When I come back, that crossed over to me at a very young age, not knowing what their life path was all about. And things of that nature. Losing my Russian blue a year less than with my mother, and looking at everything that was happening at the time and what was my purpose now in this moment, and reconnecting with a town that was much different, even though I came back to a lot much different than I had known it, for example. But sometimes purpose is not something we need to find. It just is something that naturally comes, and we have to just allow the flow and understand in the moment. So when you stop living as this version of yourself that forgot who you are, you know, sometimes when you stop living as a version of yourself that forgot who you are. So I want to leave you with this, and I'll mention it at the end as we do. And I'll read it because I have written down here. What part of you is ready to come out of hiding now that you're remembering who you are? I'll repeat that. What part of you is ready to come out of hiding now that you're remembering who you are? That's what I have for y'all today, how to come back and do deeper reflection and go into the feeling, because there's things that feel natural, that feel unnatural to a kid when we share something, when we do something with them. And we want them to do it this way. They might still clean good, for example, but they don't have to clean it the way we do, as long as it gets clean, for example. That might be a little something. Mm-hmm. So, my dear, yeah, from the body. I don't know. I had one question for you. I'm gonna do this one for you. In body, or maybe I can wait and maybe you answer it after, because I think that you will probably answer it anyway, which has to do with practices help you reconnect to yourself, because we talk about body and coming back in.
So, me specifically?
Yeah.
I don't know. I may or may not. I don't know. If I'll share my specific practices, but if we have time, I will. Thank you for that. I think that was very insightful and hopefully cracks people open in a way that all these conversations that we have are meant to be. And I think just the conversation around spiritual amnesia is, I think so many people are in an amnesiac state.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to be picking up on where we left off in the last episode around spiritual amnesia. And last time I actually defined amnesia as what it resulted in. And I talked about like the psychological disturbances and the brain injury or the illness. And so I'm going to lean into the psychological disturbance from the standpoint of the impact that that infliction has and how you can work with it. And for time's sake, I was going to talk about two, but for time today, I'm going to talk about one, and I'm going to talk specifically, since you talked about it, I'm going to talk about the throat chakra specifically. Before we get to that point, I think I want to remind people of the two modes of operation that we are either operating in. The one mode is the one that's really causing the infliction, that's really kind of leaning into the spiritual amnesia here. And this is the outward authority. We seek this outward authority. It can be religious, it can be spiritual, it can be whatever, Mother Nature, but seeking things outside of ourselves. So these are like what would be defined as what's like worldly authority. And this is the infliction that impacts us in the mind versus our individual authority, which is in the body. We're meant to be in our body so we can receive the communication cues and what have you that our body is sending in terms of how it's responding to our level of fulfillment in our life, how safe we feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in the mind, this outward authority plays mind games. It's all about playing mind games. It's all because it's about these mind games. It has this impact on your lack of mental capacity and really impacting how you can because you're always seeking this outwardly of self. So it's always you have a lack of mental capacity because you're being told how to think, essentially. So you have a lack of mental capacity because you're not really tapped into your own mind. Your mind is being told how it needs to be, versus the individual authority is really how we're in the body and will always be in soul alignment. And so this in the mind, it leads to you being vulnerable, very vulnerably spiritually, I can't even speak today. What are words? It leads to being spiritually vulnerable. There we go. I had the words flipped. And so this leads to self-doubt. It leads to this absence of feeling power, because seeking outside of ourselves, it will then lead to disbelief. It leads to broken dreams, and it leads to those creative blocks in the body, which is how we're going to approach this, right? We understand spiritual amnesia is like this outward expression. So we're going to hop in the body here, and I'm going to tell you how. So in the body, individual authority, it requires you to have an open mind, and critical thinking is very much required. So you're thinking for yourself. You're not being told how to think. You're looking at what they're telling you and you're evaluating, wait, is that really aligned with me feeling good in my life? So critical thinking is required. Individual in the body is about embracing yourself and allowing this to happen. It's about self-acceptance, and the self-acceptance, it comes through self-discovery and self-awareness. And these are the pathways having a level of acceptance, having a level of self-awareness, having this critical thinking, embracing yourself, allowing yourself to be who you are. These are the pathways to your destiny. This is where dreams and creative connection can happen. This is when expression and lived experiences are aligned. So how to shift into this fully, I had two pathways of activation, but for today, I'm going to talk about the throat chakra. The throat chakra. The throat chakra is the energy center in the body. For today's sake, I'm going to assume you know what the chakras are. If you don't, Google it. So the throat chakra is the entrance to your higher spiritual realm, and it gives voice to our soul. And it's also the reminder here of the power that your words have in this energy center. And because of that power, the words that we speak have the power to both destroy and to heal. And one thing about the chakras is chakras govern very specific parts of the body and functions and what have you. And so the throat chakra, it governs the ears, allowing us to hear the inner voice of our intuition. So if you are having this challenge of around feeling comfortable with yourself, allowing the embracing of yourself, throat chakra activation is essential. It can help you be more comfortable in expressing yourself and what have you. And when your throat chakra is activated in a balance and in alignment and attunement with our individual inner authority that I talked about, getting in the body, our true authentic voice is expressed because it's activated. And this is where faith and understanding combine, and it impacts your will to live. Your will to live is like really strong, and you're able to follow your dreams when your throat chakra is activated. So when it's activated, expression comes easily, creativity comes easily. There's a level of authentically expressing and creating because we start to listen to our inner voice because we're connected, it's activated, and we have balance between silence and speech. And I think this is really, really, really crucial point is to sit with yourself and ask yourself, am I okay being in the silence? They're both very, very important. So throat chakra, how to work with the throat chakra here is to say what you mean and mean what you say. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Some practices chanting is really good. It helps to activate your throat chakra. It activates your muscles and singing and reading aloud and humming. And so one of the things about each of the chakra centers, they have a mantra sound that you can chant to activate that. And so for the throat chakra, it's hum, H-U-M, hum. So you can say that and it starts to activate your throat chakra. Leaning into nourishing foods and things like that, drinking teas that soothe the throat, such as peppermint, slippery elm, and spearmint, are really good at, they have these medicinal properties that help to soothe and calm and just energetically just speak and activate your throat chakra. So those are some very simple ways. And for today, I just wanted to do very simple things, right? Around the throat chakra activation. So some questions here, right? Because we're going to be using our throat chakra. We're going to be talking to ourselves here. We're not going to journal. You're going to answer these questions out loud. Speak to yourself. Start to learn to speak and hear your voice. Be comfortable with your voice through answering these questions out loud. So the first question I have for you is to ask yourself, are you honest about or with yourself and with others? I think this is a huge one. Are you honest about yourself and are you honest with others? How are you with holding or swallowing words? Are you like, do you find yourself holding back what you want to say? Do you find yourself, something comes up and you just like, no, 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 you push it down, you swallow it down? What are you holding back? What are you holding back that needs to be expressed that you are swallowing down? Say what those are out loud, activating that throat chakra. Another question to ask yourself out loud, to answer out loud rather, is how is it showing up in your body? How is it showing up in your body? This is an interesting one because a lot of people think, oh, throat chakra, it's going to show up in my throat. Might not. Might show up in your knee, your toes. Because the thing about all of the chakras is that everything in your body is interconnected. So don't question if you ask yourself, how's it showing up in my body? And it's like your left butt cheek. You're like, wait, that's so random, but it's really not. There's a lot of meridian, like we have meridian pathways and there's a lot of like nadis and things like that. So everything is interconnected. So asking yourself how it's showing up in your body specifically will honor you trusting and listening to yourself. So this is an important part of the practice of activating your throat chakra and also learning that you can trust yourself, that you can listen to yourself, that your voice matters, that you can advocate for your body and your body will respond accordingly. Our body is always communicating and expressing and speaking to us. Our job is to show up and to listen to what it has to say and to decipher what it means. And the last question I have is where, when, and how did you learn that it was not safe to express yourself? If you don't do any of the other ones, this one is huge. And being honest, verbally expressing, when did you learn that it was not safe to express yourself? Where did you learn that it was not safe to express yourself? How did you learn that it was not safe to express yourself? Sit with that, allow that to be, express it, don't think it, communicate it. And so that's one way that you can explore how to proceed and how or what feels the safest for you to come back online. And it's also really important to remember that your nervous system has been in a state of survival and it will need time to trust. And then the mind having the proof that it needs to start to come back more fully online. A lot of times we think it needs to happen faster. But if your nervous system doesn't trust that it can happen faster, it's going to slow you down. So give yourself time to come back online. Remind yourself that you're in a survival mode and your body, your mind is trying to catch up with your body here. So give yourself a little bit of time to see that proof. And remember, for those of you that are kind of the amnesia, you're coming back online, remember that you have been offline and you need some grace. Embrace it from what's called a beginner's mind. You're reparenting yourself essentially, and you're learning how to walk. Think of like you're the parent and you are this baby, right? And so you're learning to walk. So don't get mad because you don't know how to walk in this way when you have been walking another way all these years. You're not failing, you're remembering, and it's all okay. So if you remember, you see a new baby learning to walk, you don't push the baby down like, no, don't walk. Or if they fall down, like, oh my God, why don't you know how to walk? No, you encourage them. Like, it's okay, get back up, you can do it. Beginner's mind. Approach yourself like you're the parent taking care of the baby. You are the baby. And remember that you don't get to leave the room when the screaming starts. I think I'm probably going to say that every episode, because maybe you are the one screaming that's finally feeling safe and empowered to use your voice. So maybe you needed to scream. That's exactly what you needed this whole time. So don't leave yourself now. Don't leave the room. Maybe that's what you need. The screaming is you because your throat chakra is activated, and allow it to happen. And that's what I have in terms of how to shift it, just focusing in on that throat chakra and activating it as well. So that's what I have.
That was good.
Was it?
The throat chakra, we've had a discussion over the throat chakra and
Mm-hmm.
voice. And the voice,
Mm-hmm.
for many women, have been silenced, as well
Yeah.
as some men, but mostly women. Women would stay in feminine energy here, the oh God, I can't even think of the word because I was speaking with a woman recently or yesterday maybe. And so those questions are deep and questions to open and help us come back.
Yeah, we got to ask ourselves. We have to be honest with how we are feeling into our life, how we're experiencing it. And the whole point of asking questions is sitting with yourself and hearing the response so you can get
Yeah.
to that level of awareness. It's always about constant pursuit of awareness. That's the whole point of this entire experience of how can I be as aware as I possibly can at any given time. And it's just about like playing with what works and what may not work at any given time too. Having a toolbox to pull from, playing with it, exploring with it. But
I would still say
don't leave
awareness is
yourself
key.
behind. Yeah, awareness is huge. It
For
really is
recognizing
huge.
awareness is recognition of the patterns of the things and understanding what you need to release to return to yourself and to be in your highest and greatest good without the continued performing, the continued circles of thought that keep us. I like the word that keep us in pain, and I'll say pain and suffering. It's not always body; it's emotional, and um, and um, and that feeling. And we have to watch what we say when our life, oh, this ain't going, oh my God. And so it's like, why is that? And you have to be aware what you say for yourself because it energetically, the law of attraction is real as
Mm.
well. So with that, y'all, I just, you are worthy. I don't know who this is for, but you are worthy to do this work to come back to self. So you may live and be free, especially from the inside out. Because if you have the inside out, you will create the world outside of you that can be freeing regardless to what's going on in the world.
Mm.
That's a knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Pick your pathway. Pick what makes sense for you. I didn't get to share the Venus activation. I may put that on my YouTube channel because that one may speak more to people. So I'll leave it there on that. Yeah,
Do you have a question you want to leave them with? Well, I guess you
no,
gave us a lot of
I
questions.
I already gave them what they needed. They don't need anything else. But I do want to say thank you all for listening. Thanks for being in conversation with me, Warrioress Ardeshir A'ren. I appreciate you
Uh,
being a part of this very important conversation today. And I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you feel called to subscribe to the YouTube channel, we would appreciate it. If you are listening on the podcast, we would appreciate if you follow. And if none of those feel good, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Thanks for watching and listening. We appreciate you no matter what. So with that, we hope to see you in the next episode. We hope that you will hear us on the next episode. And thank you again for making it this far. And hopefully, this has inspired you to activate in some way.
I shade to that.
All right. See you guys next time.
Peace.